We often tend to criticize other people and even mock them, frequently considering them crazy. What else can you call a person who has been single-handedly digging a canal for 11 years in a row? Only a madman. There are no other words. Actually, that's what a man named Laungi thought of himself for wanting to save his village from extinction, while everyone around considered him crazy. So, watch the video and find out how this story ended. Laungi Buyan lived in the Indian village of Kathalawa all his life. And his life wasn't easy because he literally had to survive in his village, earning money on pastures, farms, or local construction sites. Throughout his life, he has never been able to buy a good house or at least a tractor to work in the field. In general, none of the villagers could boast of being fortunate because the common problem for all the villagers was the lack of water. They had to spend most of their savings to deliver it from neighboring towns. The fact was that the bigger part of the rainfall came down the nearby hills into the dirty river several tens of kilometers from the settlement. This situation even caused many of the villagers to leave their homes. Overall, the village that had existed for several dozens of years was visibly dying out and turning into a wasteland. Even despite the fact that Laungi's 4 children had also moved to more comfortable settlements, the old man didn't even want to consider leaving his home. He later said something along the lines, "In just 1 year, many of our neighbors and friends left us. I even had to come to terms with the departure of my own children. But I couldn't do as they did, because I was born here, and this is my home." Sure, they could all have just kept complaining about their fate. I mean, what else could they do? And that's exactly what all the villagers did, everyone but Laungi. He decided to take matters into his own hands and single-handedly carve out an entire canal so that the water would come down from the hills to a small pond near the river. Initially, Laungi invited all the men from the village to help him, but the locals didn't take the man's words seriously, considering him crazy. Later, they even began to laugh at the old man's efforts, while continuing to go about their business and complaining about their lives. That's how Laungi got his reputation of being a madman. After all, even his wife didn't support her husband's initiative, threatening to move and live with their children. But it still didn't stop Laungi. He began his work in the mid-80s. Every day he got up with the sun to go to the hills to dig the canal. The weather didn't matter to him. Neither the scorching heat nor a downpour could stop him from working every day with a regular shovel and pickaxe. Each day he spent about 5 to 7 hours working. It took him an additional 2 hours to get there. After that, he returned home and did his chores. He took care of the livestock, the vegetation garden, and etc. Maybe someone could say that it was an obsession of yet another fanatic, but Laungi was confident in his endeavor. During the first year of the grueling work, the man was able to dig out about 600 meters of the canal. It wasn't just the soil that he had dug through, but there were often rocks there as well, removing which took a lot of effort. When the first canal was finally ready, Laungi was in for a huge disappointment. One day, a strong wind broke off the canal's fortifications, so the old man had to dig out a huge part of the canal again, as well as to think of a more reliable fortification system. Around that time, the man came down with an illness which incapacitated him for 6 long months and was a serious blow to his health. Nevertheless, the hard worker didn't even think of giving up. As time went on, the canal became longer and wider. It may be difficult to believe, but in the 3 long decades that the now fairly odd enthusiast was digging the canal, he managed to make it 1.5 to 3 meters wide and 1.5 meters deep. Moreover, it was 15 kilometers long. Every day, the old man worked to make his dream come true and to give hope for a better life to the residents of his village, which got rather deserted over the years. When everything was ready, Laungi dug the last section near the hills, and the water began to flow through the new canal. Needless to say, it was like a real miracle, especially since he had no considerable education. Yet he made perfect calculations and made sure that the water flow came directly into the village and the sowing fields. To say that the locals were surprised is to say nothing, because no one believed in this venture. Ever since then, Laungi was no longer considered crazy, but on the contrary, he was a real hero. About 3,000 people benefit from the results of the elderly man's work. After all, as soon as the canal started working, the village transformed noticeably. The trees and vegetation began to grow there again. Moreover, the neighboring settlements also used this water. So what did our hero get for his extraordinary work besides appreciation? Having heard Laungi's story, a local businessman decided to buy the old man a new tractor. Someone may not see it as an appropriate token of appreciation for the man's extremely hard work, But as Laungi himself admits, his goal wasn't to become rich or famous. All he wanted to do was save his village from extinction and give its residents hope for a better life. Moreover, he absolutely doesn't hold a grudge against them for making fun of him and allows everyone without exception to use the water. Since this story was shared on social media, people began to blame the Indian authorities for not paying attention to the village's problem and for not supporting Laungi. They also talked about compensating the man for the enormous amount of work he did with the better gift. Nevertheless, the humble old man continues to remind everyone that he doesn't need money or fame. He also jokes that if his idea hadn't worked out, then hardly anyone would have stood up for him. It was my own idea, so I don't think anyone needs to give me any gifts. Today, I'm just glad that everything worked out. Well, this story once again proves that one person can make a change. After all, an ordinary man who stuck to his plan every day managed to provide water not only for himself and his village, but also neighboring settlements. Only the most determined people can truly create great things, and I think Laungi is definitely one of them. Friends, how do you feel about the old man's idea? Share your thoughts in the comments. And that's all for now. Hit the like button and see you soon. Bye.